Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me again this week. As promised, I would like to talk about my first out of body experience. This was also the most jarring and happened when I was around 12 years old. One early weekday morning, just before school, I was somehow floating back to my building in New York City. This memory begins with me just outside of the building, as I do recall seeing a large tree beneath me as I floated over it. I don't recall where I was prior to this. I always think about, well, what was I doing before this memory for me began? But I could never remember anything that occurred before the memory of me being outside of the window. But anyway, I know that it was early morning and I could hear the bustling of the street below me before I passed through the window and into my childhood bedroom. Now, I do recall that all of the colors somehow seemed muted while I was in this state, very dull, wasn't vibrant at all. It seemed to be pale. And that I do remember distinctively. I could hear my mother repeatedly calling my name, Dawn, Dawn, get up, in an effort to rouse me from my deep sleep. Right after I passed through the window, I still remember watching her walk back and forth down the hallway as she had to pass my room to get to the bathroom, which was to the left, and at the end of the hall, where she was wetting a washcloth for my brother. And then she would pass back again to go back to his room, which was located to the right of me. So I'm in my bedroom looking at my mother, hollering for me to get up, walking back and forth um, as she was washing my brother. He was disabled, so she had to make multiple trips as he was being cleaned up for school in his own personal hospital bed. And this was routine, so this wasn't out of the norm. What was out of the norm, though, is that I'm watching her and there's no walls or ceilings or anything like that to break sight of her. I can see her going up and down the hallway, not just cross in front of my door. Now, this goes on not very long. I'm watching her and she's yelling for me to get up, but I finally look over to my left where my actual bed was located alongside the wall, and this was also to the left of the window that I just passed through. And at first, I felt like I was watching a movie, and I didn't realize that it was my body that I was looking at lying in that bed. I saw that my body was lying in a fetal position on its right, facing the wall, with my knees almost touching it. My body was completely still, with the covers I apparently kicked off during the night crumpled up at the foot of the bed. I'm looking and I'm seeing this, and I first wondered, why wasn't I getting up out of the bed as my mother commanded? Again, it kind of felt like a moving storybook. I was thinking she should get up. Her mother's calling her name. And then for some reason, I instinctively lay down beside the body, mimicking the fetal position. And I know I'm going back and forth between my body and the body, but because at the moment, somehow I was separated from myself. And this was very confusing. But in that moment, I lay down beside my body, like behind it, right? So the I'm my actual physical body is in fetal position, and I lay down behind it, like I'm sharing my own bed with myself. It sounds funny, but it's true. I don't know. I don't know why I did that, but once I laid down behind myself, mimicking the pose, I felt an instant suction pull towards it, and then I woke up. I woke up in my physical body facing the wall. Now, that tripped me out. I noticed that when I woke, I was in the exact same position that I previously seen myself lying in. Now that I was in my body, I was shocked by all of this. My mother was still yelling my name, yes, commanding me to get up. I immediately hopped out of the bed and was so freaked out by what just happened. I quickly tried to tell her straight away what happened, standing outside of the bathroom doorway, blocking her path back to my brother's room. But she was too busy and too frustrated to deal with my flights of fancy and was definitely not in the mood for stories this morning. She told me to hurry up and get ready before I was late for school. Now, I have mentioned this moment on a few occasions to friends, and maybe a family member or two, but over the years, I just learned to stop talking about it. But I could never forget it. I mean, seeing my body from a third person's perspective was jarring, but it wasn't the last. This has so far occurred two more times in my life. Next week, I'll talk about the second time this happened when I was a grown woman in my 30s. Thanks for listening. Until next time.